So, you're about to dive into your first big research project, and you might be feeling a mix of excitement and, let's be real, maybe a little bit of dread. Hey, you're not alone. We're going to pull back the curtain on the whole research journey. Not the neat, tidy version you see in textbooks, but the real, kind of messy, and ultimately way more rewarding path to discovery.
You've got your big question, and you probably picture this perfectly paved highway, right? Just a straight shot from your starting point right to some brilliant conclusion. Sound familiar? That's the ideal most of us have in our heads when we start out.
And that ideal, well, that's what we can call the research myth. This idea that research is a perfectly neat, predictable, step-by-step process.
And here it is, the classic textbook recipe for research. Formulate a topic, review the literature, design, collect, analyze, write up. It's laid out like this clean, sequential checklist. You just tick one box and move on to the next. Seems super simple, right? A little too simple, maybe.
Yeah, and this quote really nails that official view. It talks about research as this rational process where you just pass through these neat little stages one by one. But that's not really the whole story, is it?
So now, let's pull back that curtain and take a look at the messy and honestly way more interesting reality of how research actually gets done.
The truth is, that perfect straight path, it pretty much never exists. As one source puts it, the reality of research is considerably messier. And you know what? That's not a bad thing. It's just the truth.
This diagram here shows what's really going on. The reality is that all those stages, they overlap. You'll find yourself jumping back to rethink your research design after you've already started collecting data. Or you'll be refining your topic after you thought you were done with the literature review. It's a loop, not a straight line.
And this is so important. When you feel like you're going in circles, when an idea that seemed brilliant turns out to be a dead end, you are not failing. You are doing research. That whole process of rethinking and revising, that is the work.
Okay, so how do you navigate this messy reality without completely getting lost? Well, you need a secret weapon, and that weapon is something called structured reflection.
All right, let's break this down into two really key ideas. First, you've got reflection. That's looking at your process. What did I do and how did it go? But then there's reflexivity, which goes a crucial step deeper. It's about turning the lens around on yourself. How are my own assumptions and biases shaping what I'm seeing and doing here?
At its core, reflexivity is all about reflecting critically on the self as researcher. And why does this matter so much? Because it forces you to surface all those preconceived notions you have. It helps you see your own perspective before it accidentally steers your entire project off course.
I know this might sound a little abstract, so let's make it super concrete. Let's talk about Amanda, a student researcher whose story just perfectly illustrates this whole idea.
So, Amanda was observing customer behavior in a shop. At first, she just sat quietly in a corner, trying her best not to be noticed. But then, she had this total aha moment, which she wrote down in her research diary. She realized her physical spot in the room was actually limiting the data she could get. She was just too far away to see people's expressions or hear what they were saying.
And that right there is the power of reflexivity in action. That realization wasn't a failure at all. It was an insight. It allowed her to adjust her method, literally to move closer to the action, and in the end, she collected much richer, more valuable data because of it.
Okay, so we know reflection is absolutely key, but how do you actually, do it? Let's get practical and talk about your toolkit.
Here are some incredibly useful tools you can start using right away. A reflective diary is perfect for just tracking your thoughts and feelings about how things are going. A research notebook can be your command center for everything: notes, ideas, conversations. Interim summaries force you to pause and actually figure out what you've learned so far. And self-memos are just quick notes to self, perfect for capturing those little aha moments. The point is to make reflection a real, tangible habit.
All right, we've busted the myth, we've embraced the messy reality, and we've built our toolkit. Now it's time for you to actually start the journey.
So if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's this. Stop chasing the myth of a perfect, straight-line research project. That's not the goal. The real goal is to embrace the messy, reflective, back-and-forth journey itself, because that's where the deepest learning and the best insights are actually going to happen. In the end, your research is going to be messy. That's pretty much a guarantee. So the only real question you need to answer is the one you see right here. What are you going to learn from it?